Hello, dear friends. As we gracefully navigate our golden years, often after the wonderful age of 65, we come to cherish each moment, each season, each laugh, and each quiet afternoon more deeply than ever before. We understand that the true richness of life isn't just in the number of years we accumulate, but in the quality, the comfort, and the joy we experience in those years. And at the very heart of that experience, quite literally, is our heart. Our heart is an incredible organ working tirelessly for us, day in and day out. It's a symbol of life, love, and resilience. But as with any cherished companion, sometimes it sends us quiet signals, little whispers that might suggest it needs a bit more attention, a little extra care. These aren't always dramatic alarms or sudden pains. Often they are subtle, easy-to-miss signs that we might attribute to just getting older or a long day. But understanding these gentle nudges can make all the difference in maintaining our vitality and ensuring our heart continues to beat strong and steady for many more vibrant years to come. Today we're going to talk about 7 of these often overlooked, subtle signs that your heart might be asking for a little extra love and attention after 65. This isn't meant to cause worry, but rather to empower you with gentle wisdom, to help you listen more closely to your body's unique language. By the end of our time together, I hope you'll feel more attuned to these signals and confident in discussing them with your doctor, who is your most valuable partner in health. So, let's begin this journey of gentle discovery together. Sign 1. Persistent, unexplained fatigue. Let's start with something many of us experience from time to time: fatigue. We all have days where we feel a bit tired, perhaps after a busy morning or a restless night. But what we're talking about here is a fatigue that feels different. It's a deep, persistent weariness that doesn't seem to go away, even after a good night's sleep. It's that feeling of exhaustion that makes simple, everyday tasks feel like climbing a mountain. Maybe you used to enjoy a leisurely walk around the block, and now that same walk leaves you feeling completely drained, as if you've run a marathon. Or perhaps preparing a simple meal in the kitchen now feels like an overwhelming chore, and you find yourself needing to sit down and rest after just a few minutes. This isn't just your usual, "I'm getting older" tiredness. This is a profound lack of energy that might be a sign your heart is working harder than it should be, struggling to pump enough blood to meet your body's needs. When the heart isn't as efficient, your muscles and organs aren't receiving the oxygen and nutrients they require, leading to that deep, pervasive fatigue. I remember a gentleman named Tom, a delightful soul in his late 70s who loved his garden. He'd spend hours happily tending to his roses and vegetables. But over a few months, Tom noticed he was feeling utterly wiped out after just 15 minutes of light weeding. He'd attribute it to the heat, or just not being as young as he used to be. But this fatigue started to spill over into other parts of his day. He found himself dozing off in his armchair much more often, even after a full night's rest. He mentioned it casually to his doctor during a routine checkup, almost as an afterthought. It turned out to be one of the early signs that his heart was indeed under more strain than it should be. With some gentle adjustments to his lifestyle and a new medication, Tom slowly began to regain his energy, and eventually he was back to enjoying his beloved garden for longer stretches, though he now remembered to take more breaks and drink plenty of water. It was a subtle shift in his energy levels that, once recognized, made a significant difference. So, if you're finding that persistent, unexplained fatigue is becoming your new normal, it's certainly worth a gentle conversation with your doctor. Sign 2. Subtle shortness of breath. The second subtle sign we want to talk about is shortness of breath, but not necessarily the kind that makes you gasp for air. It's often much more gentle, almost imperceptible at first. We're not talking about huffing and puffing after sprinting to catch a bus, though that's a different conversation. This is more about everyday activities that never used to make you breathless suddenly leaving you feeling a little winded. Perhaps you notice it when you're walking up a gentle incline that you used to manage effortlessly. Or maybe it's when you're carrying a light bag of groceries from the car to the kitchen. You find yourself needing to pause for a moment to catch your breath, even though the effort doesn't seem to warrant it. It might also show up during simple tasks like getting dressed or having a phone conversation. You might not feel a sharp struggle for air, but just a mild, persistent feeling of not quite getting enough air, or needing to take deeper breaths more frequently. When the heart isn't pumping blood as effectively as it should, blood can sometimes back up in the veins leading to the lungs. This can cause fluid to accumulate in the lungs, making it harder for oxygen to pass into the bloodstream, hence that feeling of being subtly short of breath. It's your body's way of saying, "I need a little more help with oxygen." Let me tell you about Nancy, a vibrant woman who loved her daily walks around her neighborhood. She lived in a bungalow, so stairs weren't an issue at home. But she started noticing that when she visited her daughter's 2-story house, Just going up the single flight of stairs to the bedroom left her feeling a little breathless, needing to pause at the top. She chalked it up to being out of practice with stairs. Then she noticed it during her gentle walks. She'd have to slow down or even stop for a moment to catch her breath, even on flat ground. It wasn't a gasping feeling, just a sense that her lungs weren't quite keeping up. When she finally mentioned this subtle change to her doctor, they looked into it and discovered that her heart was indeed working harder than it should. Early detection allowed her to make some changes that eased her breathing and helped her continue enjoying her walks with much more comfort. So, if you find yourself experiencing a gentle, persistent shortness of breath during activities that once felt easy, it's a sign worth exploring. Sign 3. Swelling in your legs, ankles, or feet. Our third subtle sign often appears at the very bottom of our body, swelling in the legs, ankles, or feet. This is sometimes called edema, and it's another gentle hint that your heart might need a little extra attention. You might notice your shoes feeling a bit tighter than usual by the end of the day, or your socks leaving deeper indentations around your ankles. When you press gently on your skin in these areas, you might find that the indentation lingers for a moment after you lift your finger. This swelling happens when your heart isn't strong enough to pump blood efficiently from your lower extremities back up to your heart. Gravity then causes fluid to pool in your legs, ankles, and feet. It's not necessarily painful, but it can make your limbs feel heavy or a bit stiff, and as we mentioned, it can make your shoes feel uncomfortably snug. This is different from swelling you might get from standing all day or a minor injury. This swelling tends to be more persistent and can occur even with minimal activity. Consider dear Margaret, who, in her early 70s, adored her comfortable walking shoes. She loved to be out and about. One morning, she noticed that putting on her favorite shoes felt a little snug. By evening, they felt distinctly tight. She thought perhaps the shoes were shrinking or her feet were just tired. But then, the next morning, the tightness was still there, albeit a little less noticeable. Over a few days, she realized her socks were leaving very deep marks, and her ankles looked a little puffy. It wasn't painful, just a bit uncomfortable and noticeable. When she brought this to her doctor's attention, they explained that her heart was having a little trouble with fluid management. With a few simple adjustments and some gentle guidance, Margaret's swelling eased, and she was able to comfortably slip into her walking shoes once again, enjoying her outings without that subtle discomfort. If you're noticing persistent swelling in your lower limbs, it's certainly a sign that warrants a closer look. Sign 4. Chest discomfort that isn't always pain. Now, let's talk about chest discomfort, but not necessarily the dramatic, crushing pain we often associate with a heart attack. This fourth subtle sign is often much gentler and easily misinterpreted. It might not be a sharp, intense pain at all. Instead, it could manifest as a feeling of pressure, tightness, squeezing, aching, or even fullness in your chest. It might feel like something is sitting on your chest, or like a heavy band is wrapped around it. This discomfort might come and go, and it could even spread to other areas like your arms, especially the left arm, your back, neck, jaw, or even your stomach. You might experience it during physical activity like walking up a hill or raking leaves, and it might ease when you rest. But it's important to understand that heart-related discomfort doesn't always present as a sharp, sudden pain. Sometimes it's a dull ache, a feeling of indigestion, or even just general discomfort that you can't quite pinpoint. Remember George, who was always meticulous about his yard work. One crisp autumn afternoon, while raking a particularly large pile of leaves, he felt a strange, dull ache. It wasn't in his chest, but rather in his left arm, and a slight discomfort in his jaw. He thought he might have strained a muscle or slept awkwardly. He rested for a moment and the sensation eased. A few days later, while carrying a heavy bucket of water, he felt a similar, vague pressure in his chest that quickly subsided when he put the bucket down. It wasn't alarming, but it was persistent. When he finally mentioned these subtle, recurring sensations to his doctor, they decided to investigate. It turned out that these were indeed gentle signals from his heart, asking for attention. George learned that heart discomfort can be quite varied and subtle, not always the dramatic scene often portrayed. So, if you're experiencing any unusual or recurring pressure, tightness, or discomfort in your chest, or radiating to your arms, back, neck, jaw, or stomach, even if it's mild and fleeting, it's a crucial signal to discuss with your healthcare provider. Sign 5. Dizziness or lightheadedness. Our fifth subtle sign can feel quite unsettling, experiencing dizziness or lightheadedness more frequently. We've all stood up too quickly and felt a brief head rush, and that's usually nothing to worry about. But what we're discussing here is a more persistent or recurring feeling of being unsteady, woozy, or as if you might faint. It's that sensation where the room feels like it's spinning just a little, or you feel like you might lose your balance without a clear reason. This can happen if your heart isn't pumping enough blood to your brain, leading to a temporary reduction in oxygen flow. It might occur when you change positions, but it could also happen spontaneously. It's not just feeling a bit off, it's a true sense of being lightheaded or dizzy, sometimes accompanied by a feeling of weakness or blurred vision. If these episodes become more frequent, or if they happen when you're not changing position, it's a significant sign. Let's consider Evelyn, who was still quite active in her late 60s, enjoying her weekly dance classes. She started noticing that occasionally, when she stood up from her armchair, she felt a distinct wave of dizziness, sometimes lasting for several seconds. At first, she dismissed it, thinking she just needed to stand up more slowly. But then, it began to happen when she was simply walking across a room, or even just reaching for something on a high shelf. She hadn't fallen, but the feeling was unsettling. She mentioned it to her daughter, who encouraged her to talk to her doctor. Her doctor performed some tests and discovered that her heart was having some very subtle issues regulating blood flow to her brain, especially with changes in posture. With a simple adjustment to her medication and some advice on hydration, Evelyn's dizziness significantly reduced, allowing her to continue dancing with confidence. So, if you're experiencing recurring bouts of dizziness or lightheadedness, particularly if they are not explained by standing up too quickly, it's a signal your heart might be sending that warrants attention. Sign 6. A persistent cough that won't quit. The sixth subtle sign might surprise you. A persistent cough that just doesn't seem to go away. Now, we're not talking about the kind of cough you get with a cold, the flu, or allergies. This is a nagging, often dry cough that lingers, even after you've recovered from an illness, or when there are no other obvious reasons for it. Sometimes it might even produce white or pink-tinged mucus. This type of cough can be a subtle sign of heart issues because, as we mentioned earlier, if your heart isn't pumping blood efficiently, fluid can build up in your lungs. This fluid then irritates the airways, triggering a persistent cough as your body tries to clear the fluid. It's almost like a chronic tickle in your throat or a feeling of mild congestion that never quite clears. You might find yourself coughing more at night, or when you lie down, as gravity can make the fluid accumulate more easily in the lungs in a horizontal position. Think about Robert, who was in his early 70s and generally quite healthy. He developed a cough that he initially thought was the tail end of a cold. But weeks passed and the cold symptoms vanished, yet the cough stubbornly remained. It was mostly a dry, hacking cough, and it seemed worse when he lay down at night, disrupting his sleep. He tried cough drops and various home remedies, but nothing truly relieved it. It wasn't a severe cough, just a constant annoyance. When he mentioned it to his doctor, emphasizing that it was different from his usual cold coughs, his doctor looked into it. It turned out that this persistent cough was indeed a subtle indicator of fluid buildup due to his heart not being as efficient as it once was. Once his heart condition was addressed, Robert's nagging cough slowly disappeared, and he was able to enjoy restful nights once again. If you have a persistent cough that isn't clearly linked to a respiratory infection or allergies, and especially if it's worse when you lie down, it's definitely a sign to discuss with your doctor. Sign 7. A change in your exercise tolerance. Finally, our seventh subtle sign is a general change in your exercise tolerance. This isn't just about feeling a little less energetic than you did in your youth. This is about a noticeable and often inexplicable decline in your ability to perform physical activities that you used to manage with relative ease. Perhaps you used to walk a certain distance comfortably, and now you find yourself needing to stop and rest more frequently, or you simply can't go as far. Maybe you used to enjoy a particular hobby like gardening, golfing, or dancing, and now you find yourself tiring out much faster, or experiencing the other symptoms we've discussed like shortness of breath or fatigue, much more quickly than before. It's a sense that your body just isn't keeping up with the physical demands you used to place on it, even when those demands are quite modest. It's a feeling of suddenly being less capable, less robust, or less able to keep up with your usual routines without feeling overly exerted. When your heart isn't functioning optimally, it struggles to deliver enough oxygenated blood to your muscles during physical activity. This results in your muscles tiring more quickly, leading to that decreased exercise tolerance. It's a key indicator because it directly reflects your heart's ability to respond to the demands of your body. Let's think of Sarah, who was in her mid-70s and had always been quite spry. She loved walking her little terrier, Max, around the park for an hour every morning. Over a few months, she noticed that she was needing to sit on benches more often during their walk, something she never used to do. She also found herself getting more winded on the gentle slopes of the park. At first, she thought she was just getting soft, but the decline felt significant and persistent. It wasn't a gradual change over years, but a more recent, noticeable drop in her stamina. When she shared these observations with her doctor, combined with some of the other subtle fatigue she was feeling, it helped her doctor connect the dots. Addressing the underlying heart issue allowed Sarah to regain some of her previous stamina, and she was able to enjoy her walks with Max much more comfortably, albeit at a slightly gentler pace. So, if you've noticed a significant and unexplained decline in your ability to comfortably engage in your usual physical activities, it's a subtle but important sign worth discussing with your doctor. Dear friends, thank you for joining me on this important discussion about the subtle signs your heart might be sending you after 65. Our bodies are wonderfully complex and they communicate with us in gentle ways. The key is to listen with an open mind and a caring heart. These 7 subtle signs, persistent fatigue, subtle shortness of breath, swelling in your lower limbs, unusual chest discomfort, dizziness or lightheadedness, a persistent cough, and a noticeable change in exercise tolerance, are not meant to alarm you. Instead, they are invitations to pay closer attention, to foster a deeper connection with your well-being, and to have open, honest conversations with your healthcare provider. Your doctor is your most valuable partner in this journey, and they can help you understand what these signs might mean for you personally and guide you towards the best path for your heart health. Remember, living a long and joyful life isn't just about adding years, it's about adding life to your years. By being gently aware and proactive, you're taking wonderful steps to ensure your heart continues to beat strong and steady, allowing you to embrace each day with vitality and peace of mind. We'd love to hear from you. Did any of these signs resonate with you? Or perhaps you have your own experiences or wisdom to share about listening to your body's subtle signals. Please leave a comment below. Your thoughts and experiences are incredibly valuable to us and to this wonderful community. If you found this video helpful and inspiring, please give it a gentle thumbs up, a like, and consider subscribing to our channel for more content dedicated to your well-being in these golden years. And if you know someone who might benefit from this message, please share it with them. Your support helps us continue creating content that truly serves you. Thank you again for spending this time with us. We look forward to seeing you in our next video, as we continue to explore pathways to a healthier, happier, and more fulfilling life. Take good care of your beautiful heart.